former President Donald Trump's attention is now turning to a growing list of legal problems.
Donald Trump could be weeks or months away from becoming a criminal defendant.
The Fulton County District Attorney opened a criminal investigation into Trump's attempts to influence the 2020 election in Georgia.
He also faces possible criminal prosecutions in New York City on federal and state charges.
Donald Trump could end up in jail.
Prosecutors are closer than ever to charging former President Donald Trump with a crime. But indicting an ex-commander-in-chief might actually say more about America than it does about Trump. Here's why. No president, and I'd go out on a limb here to say no person, wants to spend their golden years trapped inside a drawn-out criminal nightmare from which they can never awaken. But that's what Trump's up to, in multiple states, for multiple types of potential criminal exposure. Will Trump end up in prison? Will his trusty chief financial officer flip? And most importantly, what does it mean for us? For the rest of the country that has to go through it with him? As if we're handcuffed together in some kind of a criminal screwball comedy that never ends.
Idiot. I got no keys for these cuffs. Huh?
Of course, American presidents have a long history of tangling with the law. So, let's take a look at how that's worked out in the past, using nothing more than this very couch I'm sitting on and some visual effects that I hope to God will be added in post. Every time traveler needs some time-traveling gear, and my understanding is you can just wipe the screen and it appears for you. All right. I was told there would be a button here somewhere. Let's see if it works. Wow. Whew. Wow. First stop, 1872. This is when President Ulysses S. Grant got pulled over and arrested for speeding in his horse-drawn carriage in Washington, D.C. at the corner of 13th and M Street. Okay, this may not be the best example of a president facing serious consequences. He was fined $20 and simply didn't show up in court. Maybe we can find some accountability in another century. Woo. Wow. Are those Janko jeans? Is that Alanis Morissette? Oh no. It's the 90s. God help us. Where were we? Ah, yes. I'd actually been trying to forget about this one.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
But he did.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
Bill Clinton straight up lied about it, under oath. And perjury is absolutely a crime, which would have been a problem for Clinton had he not struck a deal with the prosecutor on his last day in office. He gave up his law license for 5 years and paid a $25,000 fine, but he wasn't prosecuted. Surely there isn't some kind of pattern emerging here. On to the next. Whew. Wow. The 70s. The big one. Richard Milhouse Nixon. Nixon was named as a co-conspirator with 7 top advisors who caught felonies over the Watergate crimes. Nixon wasn't indicted, but 4 of his friends were. A sitting president was in on a criminal conspiracy. And it looked as if prosecutors might actually indict him until another president took it off the table.
President Gerald R. Ford summoned newsmen to the White House suddenly this Sunday morning and announced that he was granting a full, free, and absolute pardon to former President Richard M. Nixon for all acts he committed or may have committed during his term of office.
Well, what about Nixon's vice president, Spiro Agnew, who resigned after admitting to tax evasion in a bribery scandal?
Vice President Agnew, burying himself as a tax cheat, resigned today under an agreement which protects him from prosecution on charges of grafting.
Not him either. The couch time machine is malfunctioning. Quickly. Back to the present. This time jacket is pretty hot. Can I get out of this now? Wow. Back in the future. I mean, the future of the past. You know what I mean. Okay. There's a theme here. No matter what a commander-in-chief does, America apparently isn't a place that prosecutes presidents or former presidents. Ever. For anything. Because, as Ford said after he pardoned Nixon, holding a criminal trial of a former president risks tearing the country apart, as opposed to, you know, all of the other things currently tearing the country apart.
This assembly is unlawful.
Which brings us back to Trump. Is this history repeating itself, or is he actually going to get charged? Like, if presidents have committed crimes before, is there some kind of reason we haven't prosecuted them? Joe Biden sure thinks so.
I think it is a very, very unusual thing, and probably not very, how can I say it, good for democracy to be talking about prosecuting former presidents.
Right. Presidents do have a lot of power to determine who gets slapped with a criminal charge, if they decide to use it. And it's easy to see how, if that becomes a normal thing, this whole process goes off the rails. And then, each side starts campaigning on investigating the other side. Like this.
We have to investigate Hillary Clinton, and we have to investigate the investigation. Investigate Hillary Clinton's new crimes, which happen all the time. Obama is now into the act. We have to investigate an expedited investigation. They should investigate the Bidens.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
According to the Mueller report, Trump spoke to Attorney General Jeff Sessions about launching an investigation and a prosecution of Hillary Clinton, and Sessions simply didn't do it. Okay, so then we can't prosecute former presidents for anything? Doesn't that, like, raise the incentive to crime all the time? Knowing that being in the White House makes you too big to fail? Or even worse, the incentive to do anything, break any law, and then just fundraise yourself into the presidency, because then, why not? Who can touch you? Or, as one guy put it,
when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal. By definition. Exactly.
Damn. That's kind of what makes this Trump dilemma so existential. If he did serious crimes, then the bigger question isn't what should happen to Donald Trump, it's what kind of country are we? Do we take the risk of deciding that presidential criming has no serious consequences? Like calorie-free chocolate.
Ooh, diabolically clever. Jello fat-free chocolate pudding. Smile more.
Or the risk that prosecuting presidents becomes normal, and then no one can ever afford to lose an election ever again. Joe Biden's Department of Justice does not seem to be interested at all in slapping federal charges on Trump. For example, for very credible evidence of obstruction of justice in the Mueller report. Over 1,000 former prosecutors signed a letter saying Trump's actions, as detailed by Mueller, would have gotten anybody else charged. Instead, it's state prosecutors who don't answer to the Biden administration at all who are moving in. Right now, Trump's real criminal jeopardy lies in New York State and Georgia. And this may be the awkward compromise. We don't use the federal system to charge former presidents. But if you take your presidential crime spree outside DC, state officials might just pull that motorcade over, check the trunk, and make you feel like you're living in a Chameleonaire song. And this ain't a perfect system. Maybe it goes too far in one direction or the other, or both. But that's what we're doing now. And for the first time in American history, we might just be about to find out what happens when we send an American president to prison, both to him and to us. Buckle up. Whew. Time travel's thirsty work. To all you hardworking journalists out there, keep it up, fly boys. He's looking at you, Ace.